My name is Anna Ouellette. I'm 34, and my daughter Mia is 8. Last Christmas Eve, my mother and sister kicked us out of a dinner Mia had been counting down to for 3 weeks. She was standing in her red cardigan in the middle of my parents' dining room. 12 adults at the table. My sister Vanessa looked across the room and said the words I will carry the rest of my life. You should leave and never return. My mother nodded. Christmas is so much better without you. I didn't beg. I didn't cry. I opened my bag. What happened in the next 5 minutes shut down nearly $500,000 in gifts they didn't know they were about to lose. But the part that still wakes me up at 3 in the morning isn't the money. It's what Mia asked me in the car. And what I had to tell her about her grandmother. Welcome back to Calm Drama Stories. This channel is where I share family stories about boundary, dignity, and quiet strength. The kind of stories you wish someone had told you 20 years ago. If you have ever sat at a dinner table where you felt invisible to the people who raised you, this one is for you. Drop a comment and be sure to subscribe so I can tell you the rest. The morning started gentle. 7 a.m. light came through Mia's bedroom curtains, pale as paper. She was already in her star-print pajamas, cross-legged on the rug, humming Once Upon a Dream the way Daniel used to sing it to her. Low, slow, 3 notes at a time. She was drawing a Christmas card for her grandparents. A wonky tree. A dog she didn't have. A stick figure labeled Grandma with a smile too big for the face. I was in the kitchen, packing the leather portfolio Daniel gave me the day my firm opened. Soft brown calfskin, worn at the corners. A small brass clasp that still clicked the way it had 8 years ago. Inside, 5 cream envelopes, each labeled in my firm's letterhead. I won't tell you yet what was in them. I want you to feel it the way the room felt it later. Mia padded into the kitchen in her socks. Mom? Yes, baby. Do Grandma and Grandpa like presents? I stopped packing. I knelt down. I looked at her serious little face, the face she had been wearing since she was 4, and her dad had stopped coming home from the hospital. Everyone likes presents, sweetheart. Even the ones I drew? Especially the ones you drew. I tucked her card carefully into the portfolio next to the envelopes and clicked the clasp shut. I should have known when she asked that question. I should have understood what it meant. Even an 8-year-old can sense which house she has never been wanted in, but I wanted to believe. So I packed gingerbread, and I packed her hopes, and I packed Daniel's portfolio, and I drove us toward the cold. Let me give you the shape of us, fast, before the rest of the story makes sense. Daniel and I met in 2014. He was a physics teacher at a public high school in New Haven. I was a third-year associate at a downtown firm, doing pro bono estate work for families who had never heard the words living trust. I invited him to a workshop. He brought cookies and stayed 3 hours past the end. We married in 2017 at a barn in Litchfield County. Mia was born that December, in a hospital room with snow on the windows. Daniel read a chapter of Charlotte's Web between contractions. He died of pancreatic cancer in September of 2022. He was 38. Mia was 4. 3 years. That is how long it has been. People tell you grief moves in stages. Mine moves in seasons. December is always the hardest one. After Daniel died, I rebuilt the firm I had been quietly building on the side, Ouellette and Vega Estate Law. Hartford office, 11 attorneys now, a respectable book of clients. My partner Maria runs operations. I run trusts and family planning. I take home about $420,000 a year. I say that because what comes later only makes sense if you know it was mine. I earned it. Pen, paper, 80-hour weeks, lonely Tuesdays. Daniel left us $400,000 in life insurance. I have never touched it. It sits in a fund with Mia's name on it. College. A wedding she may never want. A trip somewhere quiet when she is older, where she can sit by water and remember her dad. Everything else I have ever given my family came out of my paycheck. Everything. The drive from Hartford to Bronxville is 95 minutes if you stay in the slow lane. I stayed in the slow lane. Mia fell asleep before we hit New Haven, her chin tipped against the seatbelt, breath fogging a small circle on the window. The portfolio sat on the back seat next to her like a quiet passenger. I had texted my sister 3 days earlier. I had written it carefully. If Mia gets overwhelmed at any point, I'll need to take her home. Please understand, that is not rudeness. That is her nervous system. Vanessa had replied with a thumbs up. Nothing else. I had told myself a thumbs up was an acknowledgement. It wasn't. It was the kind of reply you give a stranger who texts you a wrong number. I had also booked a room. Iroquois Hotel, 15 minutes from my parents' house. King bed, fireplace, 2 robes. I told the front desk I would check in by midnight one way or the other. I told myself the room was insurance. I told myself I would not need it. I drove past the exit for Daniel's old high school. He had taught there for 11 years. There is a memorial bench in front of the science building with his name on it, paid for by 120 students who had pooled allowance money the spring he died. None of my family had attended the dedication. My mother had said the drive was too far. I always plan for the worst. It is not pessimism. It is preparation. It is what you learn to do when you have watched the person you love most fight a disease nobody can outwork. You understand that the only thing between your child and the next disaster is your foresight. We pulled into the driveway at 4:15. 4 cars already there. Vanessa's white Range Rover, Wade's black pickup truck, Uncle Robert's old Cadillac, polished to a shine even in the snow, my parents' gray Volvo. Lights on in every window. The Christmas tree was visible through the bay window, frost climbing the glass in feathered arcs. Mia stirred. Are we there, Mommy? We're here, baby. She looked at the house for a long time. Then she looked at the bay window and lifted her finger and traced a circle in the air, mimicking the frost pattern. She had drawn frost on her car window the whole drive, finger to glass, until I had told her her hand would get too cold. I carried the gingerbread. She carried her card. My mother opened the door before I knocked. Pat in a green wool sweater, pearls, lipstick the color of dried wine. She looked at Mia first, then at me. A small thing happened behind her eyes, the same small thing that has been happening at this door for 3 Christmases. Oh, you brought her. A pause. Of course you did. From the kitchen, Vanessa called. Did you bring the gingerbread? Mom hates the store-bought ones. I held up the tin without answering. Wade was in the living room with a glass of something amber, half turned away. He lifted one hand at me without looking. Not a wave. A dismissal of duty. Mia twisted the hem of my coat in her small, careful fist. I felt it. I always feel it. Children know what adults pretend not to. I stepped inside. I should have turned around right there. Eden and Beckett were on the long leather couch, iPads in their laps. Eden is 12, dark hair, glasses she has only had since fall. Beckett is 10, hockey jersey, a smudge of chocolate at the corner of his mouth. Mia walked over carefully. She placed her crayon Christmas card on the coffee table where they could see it. Then she stood, hands at her sides, waiting. Beckett didn't look up. I don't really do art. Vanessa's voice from the kitchen. Sing-song. Beckett, be nice. Look at your cousin's drawing. He flicked his eyes over. It's fine. Then back to his game. Mia did not move. She did not say anything. She just stood there. I watched my daughter learn in real time that the room she had been told would love her did not, in fact, love her. I was about to step in when Eden put her iPad face down on the cushion. She stood up. She walked around the coffee table and sat down cross-legged in front of Mia. What are you drawing? Mia's voice was tiny. A tree. And a dog. Can I add a snowman? I'm good at snowmen. Mia handed her the card. Eden took out a green-colored pencil from her backpack and started drawing carefully, tongue poking from the corner of her mouth in concentration. Mia sat down beside her. I logged it. Eden. The only one in this room who still had a soul intact. I made a mental note that whatever happened tonight, I would not let it spread to her. 12-year-olds are still being built. You can still save them. I walked into the kitchen. My mother was waiting. I set the gingerbread tin on the counter. Pat was arranging Vanessa's cookies on the good spode plate, the one she had been using since I was Mia's age. Vanessa was leaning against the island, wine glass in hand, the same way she leans against everything in this house. She belonged. I was permitted. She didn't turn when she spoke. I told the kids Aunt Anna is bringing presents this year. Try not to be dramatic about it. I waited. Vanessa, don't start, my mother said, in the voice she uses when she does not actually want anyone to stop. The voice of a referee who has already chosen a side. I set the tin down. I kept my hands flat on the counter for a moment. The alternative was to fold them. Folded arms reads as defensive in any room. Mom. Vanessa. I kept my voice low. Mia is still settling. Please don't comment on her quietness tonight. It is a thing she does. It is how she has been since her dad got sick. She does not need to be performed at. Pat turned around slowly. She set down the silver tongs. She looked at me the way she had looked at me in 8th grade when I had come home crying about a teacher. The look that said the problem here is not the teacher. Anna. No one cares about Mia's quietness. Pause. We care about your attitude. I closed the oven door slowly. It was easier than closing my mouth. Vanessa took a sip of wine and watched me over the rim, like a cat watching a finch. I walked back toward the dining room. I was already counting exits. Pat had handwritten name tags, calligraphy ink, cream cardstock. Holly Spriggs. She walked us into the dining room like a hostess at a charity gala. My tag was at the far end of the long table, in the corner, next to the empty chair for an uncle who had canceled 2 days ago. The seat directly opposite mine was empty too. A placeholder for a brother of Wade's who had never RSVP'd. Symbolically and physically, I had been placed at the dead end. Mia's tag was at the kids' table, a separate foretop by the window, with Beckett and the 2 teenage cousins of Uncle Robert. 4 meters from me. Minimum. Eden looked at the seating chart, looked at her own assigned seat between her parents, then quietly picked up her name tag and her plate, walked over to the kids' table and sat down next to Mia, without asking, without announcing it. She just did it. I watched my niece become someone I would remember forever. Pat saw the move. Her mouth tightened. She did not say anything. We sat. Mia started humming. Once Upon a Dream. Low and steady. The way she does when she is not sure what to do with her body. The melody had carried her through her father's hospice room. It would carry her through this dinner, too. Anna, my mother said across the table, can you ask her to stop humming? Robert is trying to talk. I stood. I walked to Mia. I knelt beside her chair. I sang the last 4 notes of the verse with her, quietly. I smoothed her hair back. I whispered, let's eat, baby. I'm right over there. The humming stopped. The silence after it felt worse. My father stood for the toast. Hugh in a red sweater, glasses on a string around his neck. He has been retired for 2 years and still carries a calculator in his pocket. He raised his glass. He said the things you say at Christmas. Family. Gratitude. The year behind us. The year ahead. He made eye contact with everyone at the table, everyone except me, everyone except Mia. I noticed. Mia noticed. Children always notice when their face is being skipped. Wade went next. He toasted family, the ones who show up. He looked at Vanessa. He looked at my parents. He did not look at me. I lifted my glass and drank anyway. I had been doing that for 3 years, and I was tired of letting them choose when I was thirsty. Vanessa raised her glass third. To the ones who carry the weight. She was talking about herself. The mother of 2. The household manager. The one Pat called every morning. She wanted credit for the labor she had chosen. Which is fine, except she wanted that credit to be subtracted from somewhere, and that somewhere was always me. When my turn came, I stood. I lifted my glass. I kept my eyes on Mia, who was watching me with the wide, solemn attention of a child who senses she is in church. To Daniel, I said. He'd love seeing Mia this Christmas. I sat down. A small silence. Pat exhaled through her nose. I heard her mutter to Vanessa, soft, but not soft enough. Why does she always bring him up? Like he was a casserole that had stopped being relevant. Robert frowned into his wine. The dinner began. Robert, my father's older brother and the only one in this room I have ever liked unconditionally, leaned across the table. Anna, tell me about the firm. Vega Estate, right? I read something about you in the Hartford Courant. It was the first sentence anyone had spoken to me as a person. Willette and Vega, I corrected gently. And yes, the article was about our pro bono work for widowed families. We started a program last spring that... Speaking of carrying weight, Vanessa interrupted. Mia, sweetheart, why don't you take Beckett's tablet and go play in the den? We have adult conversation happening. Mia looked at me. She did not move. Vanessa turned to Pat. Her voice softened into the false concern register I have known since we were children. I told her, Mom. I told her this morning. Christmas is for real family, not distractions. The word landed at the back of the table like a slow stone in still water. Distractions. Robert's eyebrows pulled together. I set my fork down. Carefully. The way you set down a knife when you have decided not to use it yet. Mia is real family, Vanessa. You know what I mean? I genuinely don't. Linda, Robert's wife, cleared her throat and said something fast about the cranberry sauce. Homemade. 3 days. Secret recipe. The conversation lurched away. Robert looked at me a second longer than the moment required. I saw something pass over his face that I would later call regret. The regret of a kind man who realized, mid-bite, that his brother's house was crueler than he had let himself believe. The dinner resumed. My fork stayed down. The second course came. Roast turkey, glazed ham, 3 kinds of potato. Pat carved. She has always carved. She refused, the year Daniel was dying, to let him sit at the head and carve the way he had carved every Christmas since 2017. Hugh does the meat in this family, she had said. Daniel had laughed about it later, lying in our bed, too sick to be hurt by it. Honey, your mother thinks I'm a guest at my own holidays. And then he had fallen asleep with my hand in his. I was thinking about that when Pat sat down across from me and said, conversationally, you know, Anna, you're still young, 34. You shouldn't let widowhood become an identity. She said it the way you would remind someone to take a vitamin. I lifted my glass. I drank. I set it back down. It's not an identity, Mom. It's a Tuesday morning when I miss him. She blinked. Just for a second. Then she recovered. Daniel was a good man, she said. But he didn't build anything, Anna. You did. You're attaching your accomplishments to him, and it's keeping you frozen. Wade smirked into his wine. Vanessa opened her mouth to add something. Wade's hand moved under the table. I saw the cuff of his sleeve shift. Vanessa closed her mouth. Not yet, the gesture said. Wait. So they had planned this. The realization hit me clean. I almost told Pat that Daniel had built me, that every column I held up at my own firm had been welded by his hands in our kitchen at midnight while I cried about losing a case. But she would never have understood. And I had stopped explaining Daniel to her sometime in 2023. Mia reached for the cranberry sauce. She was trying to be helpful. She wanted some on her turkey, and she was too proud to ask one of the cousins to pass the dish, because the cousins had not spoken to her, and she had read the silence the way Daniel taught her to read silences. So she stood up halfway in her seat and stretched her small arm across the kids' table and reached for the heavy crystal bowl. Her elbow caught the rim of her water glass first. The water tipped. Then the bowl. Cranberry sauce ran across the white linen tablecloth in a thick, slow tide, a red continent on a white country. Eden gasped. Beckett laughed. Vanessa's voice cut across the room. Are you serious right now? Pat stood up. Get her cleaned up, Anna. This is not her playroom. Mia froze. She had cranberry on her cardigan. Her bottom lip went the way it goes before she cries. But she did not cry. My daughter has not cried in public since she was 5. She learned, watching me at her father's funeral, what dignity looks like at any age. I crossed the room. I lifted her out of the chair. I held her against my hip, even though she is 8 and almost too big. It's okay, baby. I'm sorry, Mommy. I'm sorry. Honey, it's just sauce. Sauce washes out. I carried her toward the bathroom. Behind us, my sister was hissing at the housekeeper about the tablecloth. My mother was already on her phone. Wade was laughing about something Beckett had said. Nobody followed us. Nobody asked if Mia was all right. The downstairs powder room had a marble basin Pat had brought back from Italy on a tour in 2018, a small fact she had mentioned every time anyone had used the bathroom since. I set Mia down on the closed toilet. I wet a washcloth. She was still apologizing. I just wanted some cranberry, Mommy. I didn't mean to. I know, honey, I know. I dabbed at the red stain on her cardigan. It came out, mostly. Daniel had bought her this cardigan 2 Christmases ago. He had picked it out alone, on a chemo day, in a small shop in West Hartford, because he had wanted her to have something soft from him that she could grow into. I reached into the leather portfolio for a clean cotton handkerchief. My fingers brushed against the edge of something stiff. Paper. Folded. His letter. I had carried his letter inside this portfolio for 3 years. I had read it twice. The first time, the week after he died, when I had found it tucked into the inside pocket where he must have put it months earlier without telling me. The second time, on Mia's 5th birthday, in the parking lot of a Target. Because I had needed to remember who I was. I touched the edge of it now. I felt the brass clasp click softly. I thought, for the first time in 3 years, that maybe I needed to read it a 3rd time tonight. After this dinner. In the hotel room I had already booked. Mommy, are we going home soon? Soon, baby. We'll go to a hotel. We'll have hot chocolate. We'll watch Frozen. With marshmallows? With marshmallows. She nodded. She put her small hand on the portfolio. She did not know what was inside it. There was a knock. Pat's voice through the door. Anna, the rolls are getting cold. Are you coming? 2 minutes, Mom. 2. Footsteps moved away. I sat down on the small upholstered stool. I opened the portfolio. I unfolded Daniel's letter. 2 pages. Notebook paper. His left-handed slant, slightly cramped from the steroids he had been on the summer he wrote it. July 12th, 2022. Anna, my love. I have been watching your mother for 10 years. I am not going to be here much longer, and I need you to have this written down, because grief makes us forgetful in ways that benefit the people who hurt us. So I am going to be plain. Your mother will tell you Mia is wrong. She will tell you Mia is too quiet, too slow, too sensitive. She will dress this as concern. It is not concern. It is the thing Patricia does to everyone who does not perform for her. She finds a deficiency, names it, and demands it be fixed. She did it to me for 10 years. I let her because I loved you, and I knew you needed time to see her clearly. You don't have time anymore. You need to see her clearly now. Here is what I need you to remember. The 3 Ks. Kindness is not a debt you owe people who do not return it. It is a choice. Spend it where it is met. Keep Mia close. Keep her quiet hours sacred. Keep her humming. Kill no one in anger. There is no version of you that wins by losing your composure. When they go too far, and they will, carry our daughter and your dignity, and walk out the door. The door is yours, Anna. It has always been yours, not theirs. I love you. Tell Mia, I sang to her. D. I folded the letter. I clicked the brass clasp shut. I stood up. I checked my lipstick in the mirror. Mommy? Yes, baby. Can we go? After dessert, 5 more minutes. She nodded. I had been carrying his letter for 3 years. Tonight I thought it was going to do its job. We walked back to the dining room. The cranberry stain on the tablecloth had been blotted with club soda. A faint pink shadow remained, the shape of a continent that had been there once and would not fully leave. I noticed. I always notice. Conversation had been happening in our absence. It stopped when we walked in. The kind of stop that tells you you have been the subject. Pat, Vanessa, and Wade had pulled their chairs closer together at the corner of the table. 3 heads, almost touching. They straightened when we entered. Pat smoothed her napkin. Vanessa adjusted her hair. Wade picked up his fork as if he had been mid-bite, though his plate was untouched. I sat down. I helped Mia into her chair beside Eden. Eden quietly handed Mia a roll without being asked. My phone buzzed in my coat pocket. I had hung the coat on the back of my chair. I slipped a hand into the pocket. A text from Maria. All 5 envelopes confirmed signed before you left. Just verifying. I typed back. One hand under the table, eyes on my plate. All signed. Ready. Standing by. I looked up. Pat was watching me. She lifted one eyebrow. I tipped my chin and offered her the small, polite smile of a colleague at a deposition. My father was watching me too. His expression was harder to read. Something like worry. Something like a man who had spent 50 years next to a woman he had never been brave enough to override. A man who was beginning to suspect that tonight someone else was going to do it for him. The frost on the bay window had thickened. The light outside had gone blue. I picked up my fork. If you have ever sat at a table where someone you love is being talked about while they are sitting in the room, you know how heavy the air gets. I want to hear from you. Have you ever stayed when you should have left? Tell me below, and if you are new here, hit subscribe. This story does not end at the dinner table. The next 30 minutes are why I am telling you this at all. Coffee was served. Pat brought out the gingerbread I had made and arranged it on a Christmas plate. She did not mention I had made it. Vanessa took 2 pieces. Wade took 3. They ate them while my sister cleared her throat in the way she has cleared her throat before every confrontation since she was 13. Anna, she said, since we're all here, Mom and I have been wanting to talk to you. It's about something we've noticed. Pat lifted her hand. Performative. Vanessa, please. Gently. Mia started humming again. Very low. Once upon a dream. 3 notes at a time. The way she does when she senses something is coming. Her hands stayed in her lap. Her eyes stayed on her plate. Vanessa folded her napkin. It's about Mia. We're worried she's not getting what she needs from being around just you. The room got quiet in that specific dinner party way. Forks were still moving. Ears were no longer chewing. I took a sip of coffee. I set the cup down on the saucer without a sound. What specifically are you observing? Vanessa blinked. She had not expected the question. She had expected tears, or defensiveness, or apology. She did not have an answer queued. Well, her behavior tonight, for one. You mean the cranberry sauce? I mean, yes. And the humming, and the way she just sits there. Vanessa. I kept my voice level. She is 8 years old. She lost her father at 4. Behavior is communication. What do you think she's communicating? Vanessa looked at Pat. Pat looked at Wade. Wade picked up the conversation the way a relay runner picks up a baton. Anna. Pat's voice now. Slower. Heavier. The voice she used to use when she was about to give one of her middle school students a discipline slip. Mom. She doesn't talk. She hums. She stares. Eden was reading chapter books at her age. I taught middle school for 30 years. I know children. This one isn't right. Eden flinched. She did not look up from her plate. Mia stopped humming. Her hands moved to the napkin in her lap and folded it twice, very carefully, into a precise rectangle. I watched my daughter make herself small in real time. I watched it the way you watch a fire start in a kitchen you cannot reach. Wade nodded along. He had been waiting his whole adult life to nod at something Pat said. Just being honest, Anna. We've all noticed. All of you? I let the question hang. All of you have noticed. Robert and Linda were not nodding. Robert was looking at his plate with the controlled fury of a man who had been raised in this house and had spent 50 years learning not to fight in it. Linda's hand had gone to Robert's wrist. The grip was tight enough to whiten the knuckles. All of us who matter, Vanessa said quickly. Pat. Vanessa. Vanessa. What? Mom, you said yourself. Pat cut her off with a tight little shake of the head. The kind of head shake that means not in front of the witnesses, you idiot. I catalogued it. I turned to Mia. Baby, Do you want to come sit next to me for dessert? She nodded. Eden helped her carry her plate. She slid into the chair on my left. She put her small hand on my forearm. I looked back at my mother. Let me make sure I understand. You're saying Mia is behaviorally inadequate for this dinner table. Mia, who lost her father at 4, who is being evaluated by a pediatric neurologist at Yale, who tests in the 98th percentile on every cognitive measure. Pat's face did one of those small recalibrations. I don't appreciate being put on trial, Anna. I am not putting you on trial. I am asking you to clarify a sentence you said about my child, while she is sitting in the room. Don't twist my words. I am repeating them. Hugh, my father, looked up. He set his fork down. His mouth opened. His mouth closed. He looked at Pat. He looked at me. He looked at his plate. He lifted his fork again. Wade said, Anna, we are trying to help. You are being defensive. I almost laughed. When somebody tells you you are being defensive, what they usually mean is that they have just thrown the first punch, and they are surprised you are still standing. Wade. I kept my voice gentle. What exactly is the help you are offering? He did not have an answer. He had only had a script. He sipped his wine. Vanessa leaned forward. She had recovered. She had reloaded. Help, Anna, looks like this. We think Mia needs structure. We think you need to let other people into her life. We think your grief is becoming her grief. And we think it is killing every gathering we have. Mia's small hand tightened on my forearm. I covered it with mine. I looked at my sister. I waited. She kept going. She had been holding this speech in her chest for a year, and she could not stop now. Her cheeks were flushed. Her wine glass was empty. She had moved past concern into the territory she had always been most comfortable in. Grievance. At Easter, she wouldn't hug Mom. At the 4th of July, she sat under the table for 2 hours. At Thanksgiving, she didn't speak the whole meal. None of the cousins know what to do with her. She has been turning our family events into pediatric therapy sessions for 3 years. I waited until she ran out of breath. Vanessa. She did not hug Mom at Easter because Mom told her her hair looked unbrushed. She sat under the table on the 4th. Beckett threw a sparkler at her face and laughed. She did not speak at Thanksgiving. Every time she opened her mouth, someone corrected her grammar. Usually you. Vanessa's mouth opened. I kept going. Still calm. Still level. The voice I use in mediation rooms when opposing counsel has decided to take it personally. Mia is being evaluated. I haven't shared the details with this family. I know what you would do with them. I see now I was right not to. Pat. See, Anna. You hide things. Family doesn't hide things. Mom. Family doesn't weaponize things. That's why I didn't share. Wade, low and hard. If she has got something, she needs treatment, not coddling. Wade. I am her mother. I have a treatment plan. I have a doctor. I have a therapist. I do not need your insurance broker opinion about my daughter's neurology. He flushed. He shut his mouth. Wade has never handled being told to shut his mouth. He set his glass down too hard. The wine sloshed. Honestly, Anna, Daniel was always a little off too. Quiet. Awkward in groups. Maybe it's genetic. Maybe you should accept that and stop pretending. The room went still. My hands, which had been on the table, went very quiet. I set my napkin down. I folded it once. I folded it again. I placed it next to my plate. Square. Mia did not understand all of it. She understood enough. She heard her father's name and the word off in the same sentence, in the mouth of a man she had been told to call uncle. She did not turn her head, but her small fingers tightened around mine under the table. I lifted my eyes to Wade. Wade. What? Daniel was a high school physics teacher who could explain quantum entanglement to a 9-year-old. He coached the academic decathlon team to a state championship. He was the only person in this room who asked how I was doing. After I lost a case in 2019, including you. Quiet is not awkward. Quiet is what people who actually listen sound like. I paused. You don't get to use his name like that. Not in front of his daughter. Not in front of his widow? Not ever. Vanessa. Anna. He didn't. Yes, he did. He said it on purpose. I know what on purpose looks like. I have been a lawyer for 10 years. Wade looked at his plate. He did not apologize. Vanessa reached for his hand. He pulled it away. The first small crack in their alliance. I noted it. My father set his fork down. He had not been eating. He had been pushing potato around his plate in a small, careful orbit. The way he used to push numbers around a calculator when he was uncertain about a balance. He cleared his throat. Pat. His voice was small. Pat. That's enough. Stop. The room turned to him. Even Wade looked up. Hugh has not raised his voice in this house, that I know of, in 40 years. Hugh has not even not raised his voice in a moment that warranted it, that I know of, in 40 years. Pat turned her head a quarter of an inch. The look she gave him was the look she had given him when he had wanted to take a job in California in 1987, and she had told him no. Hugh, you don't understand. This has to be said. He held her look. 1 second, 2, 3. Then he dropped his eyes. He picked up his fork. He pushed his potato around. He did not speak again. I watched it. I catalogued it. I did not let it save him. I have been waiting for my father to speak up for me for 34 years. He has whispered on occasion. He has never raised his voice. A whisper at the right moment is still a whisper. A whisper is not a shield. A whisper does not stop a hand from coming down on a child's head. I learned that as a girl. I had let myself forget it. I would not forget it again. I turned back to my mother. Mom, I asked you a question. What specifically about Mia's behavior? She did not have an answer. She had only ever had a verdict. I let the silence sit. I have learned, in courtrooms, that silence is a tool. People who are wrong cannot stand silence. They will fill it. They will hand you the rest of the case if you give them long enough. Pat filled it. Anna. I taught for 30 years. I have seen every kind of child. Some children are just off. There is nothing wrong with saying that. Saying it is the first step toward fixing it. I nodded slowly. I did not agree. I just nodded so she could hear herself. Mom, listen to what you are describing. You are describing an 8-year-old who lost her father at 4. Her quietness is grief. Her humming is the song her father sang to her. Every night for 4 years. Her stillness is regulation. It is how her body keeps her safe in rooms that are not safe. You are not seeing a child. You are seeing an inconvenience to your evening. Eden, very softly. She's not an inconvenience. Vanessa snapped. Eden. Eat. Eden's chin trembled. She picked up her fork. She put it down. She started crying. Silent tears. A 12-year-old who had spent 3 years watching her mother be cruel to her aunt was watching her mother be cruel to her cousin. She had finally noticed it as cruelty, instead of as the weather. Linda put her arm around Eden. Robert stood up halfway and then sat back down. 48 years of marriage to Linda had taught him when to defer. Pat said, Eden, control yourself. Vanessa, half hysterical. You're making my daughter cry, Anna. I looked at Vanessa. No, Vanessa, you are. Vanessa stood up. She has never been able to lose an argument sitting down. It is the one thing she shares with our mother. The conviction that altitude is moral high ground. She gripped her napkin in one fist. Her wine had stained the corner of her sleeve. She did not notice. You know what, Anna? Fine. Plain. You want plain? Fine. Christmas is for real family, not distractions. And I am done pretending it's anything else. You have been turning every gathering into a memorial service for 3 years. We are tired. You can show up next year, or not. But if you do it without that. She gestured at Mia. That, she said. About my daughter. Pat. Vanessa, sit down. No, Mom. You should leave and never return. Take her. Take your sad widow act. We are done. The words landed at the table like a dropped plate. Robert sat with his mouth slightly open. Linda's hand had gone to her own throat. Mia's eyes were on her grandmother's face, waiting to see if Pat would stop it. Pat did not stop it. Pat exhaled, slowly. The way you exhale when something you have wanted to happen has finally happened on someone else's mouth, so your hands stay clean. My own hands stayed on the table. They did not shake. They did not curl. They lay there flat, palms down, fingertips lightly on the linen, the way a pianist's hands rest before the first chord. Mia looked up at me. I looked down at her. I smiled, small and steady. The way Daniel had smiled at me from the hospital bed the last week. I am here. We are okay. Watch what Mommy does next. Pat exhaled once more. Then she did the thing that ended us forever. Vanessa shouldn't have said it quite like that. Pause. But honestly, Anna, Christmas is so much better without you. It has been quieter, lighter. Every gathering we've had since Daniel died has been heavier because of you. We have all noticed. We just haven't said it. Maybe we should have said it sooner. There it was. The sentence Daniel had warned me about in his letter 3 years ago. Different words. Same exact temperature. She will dress this as concern. It is not concern. I did not flinch. I felt Mia's hand on my forearm. I felt the brass clasp of the leather portfolio against my hip where it hung from the back of my chair. I felt the cold of the bay window behind my mother's head. I felt every dinner of my life arranging itself into a single weather front behind my breastbone. I stood up. The chair scraped. Once. A small, clean sound. Mia stood up too. Small and brave. Her hand still on mine. I looked across the table at my mother and my sister and my brother-in-law. I said, calmly, "The way you say the meeting is concluded at the end of a negotiation that has gone exactly the way you expected it to go." "Okay, Vanessa. Okay? Okay? That's all you have to say?" "Vanessa, I'm leaving. But before we go, Mom, Vanessa, Wade, please sit. There is something we need to do together first. It will only take a minute." They sat, confused. They had been ready for tears. They were not ready for an agenda. I picked the leather portfolio up off the back of my chair. I set it on the table. The brass clasp clicked open in the silence the way a courtroom gavel clicks at the start of a hearing. I lifted out the 5 envelopes. Cream stock. Heavy paper. Each one labeled in the font of my firm's letterhead. Each one with a name printed across the front in dark blue ink. My partner Maria's signature at the seal, alongside mine. The dates. This morning. I set them on the tablecloth, in a row, like cards. "Mom, Dad." I tapped the first one. $75,000 for a new roof on this house, and for the medical fund I was setting up. Dad's heart medication copays through 2027. Hugh's face went pale. Pat's mouth opened. I tapped the second. Vanessa, Wade, $120,000 to pay off the mortgage on the cabin in the Adirondacks, the one I co-signed for in 2022 when you couldn't qualify on your own. Wade made a small sound in his throat. Eden. I looked at my niece. Her eyes were wet. 50,000. The next 2 years of tuition at Sacred Heart directly to the bursar's office, already arranged. Eden put her hand over her mouth. Beckett. 45,000. Tier 1 summer hockey academy, plus equipment. Beckett looked at his father. His father did not look back. And Vanessa. I held up the last envelope. 200,000. Seed money for the boutique on Larchmont Avenue, the one you've been telling everyone about for 8 months. Maria signed off on the wire this afternoon. The lease deposit was set to clear Monday. Vanessa. Anna. I said. I brought these tonight. They were going to be my Christmas gifts. I lifted the first envelope. My parents' envelope. Roof and medication. I held it up. I looked across the table at Pat. Quiet. Level. Almost gentle. Then you won't mind me doing this. I tore it. One clean, deliberate motion, top to bottom. The check inside came apart with the paper. The sound was the loudest sound in the room. Pat. Anna, wait. I lifted the second envelope. Cabin mortgage. I held it up. Wade. The original cosign release for the cabin loan is in this envelope too. Tonight, my name comes off your mortgage. The bank will be notified Monday morning. Wade stood up. What? Anna? Those are checks. We're checks. I tore it. Drawn against my firm's gift account. Maria has authorization to void them all by 10 o'clock tonight. I am texting her at 9:45. Third envelope. Eden's tuition. I paused. I looked at Eden. She was crying now. Openly. Hands pressed to her cheeks. I softened my voice. Eden. I'm sorry. This one isn't about you. I love you. We will find another way to keep you at Sacred Heart next year. I will figure it out with you privately. Not with them. Will you talk to me tomorrow? Eden nodded. Twice. Hard. I tore the envelope anyway, because Vanessa needed to feel it. Fourth envelope. Beckett's hockey. Rip. Fifth envelope. Vanessa's boutique. $200,000 of my money. Vanessa. Anna, please. Anna, stop. Anna, that's $200,000. Anna, the lease. Anna, please. I held the envelope up. Christmas is so much better without me. So is $200,000 without you. I tore it. The pieces fluttered down onto the tablecloth. Some of them landed on the cranberry stain the housekeeper had tried to scrub out earlier. The stain was still pink under the fluorescence. I looked at it. I understood it suddenly, the way you understand any metaphor once it stops being a metaphor. What I had been trying to clean up at this table for 3 years was never going to come out. Pat stood up. The chair tipped behind her and caught against the wall. Her hand went to the back of her neck. Anna, please. The roof. Your father. He needs. Anna, please. We can talk about this. We can fix it. Vanessa was crying with her whole face. The pretty crying. The crying she had used at 23 to keep a boyfriend who had wanted to leave. I didn't mean leave forever. Anna, please. The cabin. Wade is going to. Anna, please. Wade was pacing the length of the dining room. Anna. The lease. The boutique. The wire. You signed those. There are obligations. We planned on that. Wade. I did not raise my voice. I never raised my voice. You planned on my money. That is not the same as obligation. I took out my phone. I looked at the time. 9:43 p.m. I typed, Maria. Void all 5. Confirm by 10. I sent it. The phone vibrated almost immediately. Confirmed. Voiding now. Hugh. Broken. Anna. I turned to my father. I had not turned to him fully since dinner began. I gave him the only sentence he was ever going to get from me on this subject. Dad. You whispered. You should have shouted. He sat down. He did not cry. He looked like a man who had just understood the price of 40 years of quiet. The frost on the bay window had thickened in the last hour. Outside, the snow had come heavier. Inside, an entire ecosystem had collapsed in 11 minutes. The only sound in the room now was Vanessa sobbing and Wade muttering numbers under his breath. Robert stood up. He put his hand on Mia's shoulder, very gently, and nodded at me once. Anna. I'm so sorry. I picked up Daniel's leather portfolio. I clicked the brass clasp shut. I took Mia's hand. We walked past the table, past Pat, who was sitting with both hands flat on the cloth, white-knuckled, mouth half open. Past Vanessa, head down on her crossed arms. Past Wade, still pacing. Past my father, who would not lift his eyes. Eden stood up at the kids' table. She walked around the long edge of the dining table. She came to Mia. She knelt down. She wrapped her arms around her cousin and held her for a long second, and she whispered something I will never know the whole of into Mia's ear. Mia nodded twice. Eden kissed the top of her head. I touched Eden's shoulder. You're a good kid, Eden. You always were. My door is open to you. Always. You can call me at any time, day or night, and I will answer. She nodded. She didn't trust her voice. I walked us to the front closet. I lifted Mia's small red cardigan off its hanger. I lifted my wool coat. I helped her into hers. I pulled mine on. At the front door I turned once. The room had not moved. They were all still where I had left them, like pieces on a board after the player has stood up. I said, mostly to myself, but loud enough for the room to hear. Daniel told me once, carry our daughter and your dignity. Walk out. The door is yours, not theirs. I closed the door behind us. In the car, before I'd even started the engine, Mia began to hum. Once upon a dream. Soft, steady. 3 notes at a time. It was the most peaceful sound I had heard all day. I drove south on 95 in the slow lane. Snow had thickened to a steady fall. Mia hummed for 20 minutes and then stopped. Mommy? Yes, baby. Was Grandma sad because of me? I pulled the car onto the shoulder. I put it in park. I turned around in my seat. I looked at my daughter's small, brave, serious face. The face she had been wearing all night. The face she had been wearing since she was 4. The face I had been protecting from this exact question for 3 years. Mia, listen to me. Okay. Grandma was never sad because of you. Grandma was sad because of herself. Those are not the same thing. And it is not your job to fix it. Not now. Not when you're older. Not ever. Do you understand? She thought about it. The thinking took a moment. Okay. A pause. Mommy, can we have hot chocolate at the hotel now? Yes, baby, forever yes. She nodded. She turned forward in her booster seat. She looked out the window at the snow. She put her hand on the glass and made a small circle with her finger, mimicking frost. I pulled back onto the highway. In the hotel room, we lit the gas fireplace. We had hot chocolate with 3 marshmallows each. We watched Frozen. Mia fell asleep against my arm at the line where Anna closes the door behind her. It was a fitting line. I held her for an hour before I let myself cry. It has been 1 year. We have not gone back. Pat sent 2 letters, one angry, one performative, and I keep them unopened in Daniel's portfolio. The way you keep evidence. Eden visits twice a month. Mia's evaluation came back. Highly intelligent, sensory sensitive, profoundly creative. She still hums. Robert tells me the cranberry stain on my mother's tablecloth never came out. I think about that sometimes. About what you can wash and what you can't. And about how the people who keep telling you that you don't belong are usually the ones most afraid of what your absence will cost them. That's my story. 1 Christmas. 1 leather portfolio. 1 little girl who deserved a quieter table than the one she got. If you know someone whose family makes them small at the holidays, share this. Drop a comment, hit subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.